Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back to the second lecture on negotiation. As you remember well, in the previous lecture we talked about the basic facts of negotiation. What is negotiation? How a fruitful negotiation can be reached at? But then negotiation, as we discussed earlier, is a process. And in order to perform that process, in order to complete that process, you need some strategies. How you can utilize certain strategies to make negotiation successful. Say for example, as a young school boy, you want to have a bike, and for that you need to talk to your parents. You are giving your own viewpoints, and the parents who actually have limited resource, they also look at, and you put several reasons in favor of the demand of your bike. And the parents, despite the fact that they have limited resource, but then they do not want to disappoint you and they want you to have a bike, but at the same time they put a condition, and the condition is, if you get a 9-pointer, we'll give you a bike, and finally you agree. So now this is another example of negotiation where the common ground is that you need a bike and you have come to a common consensus, I mean both the parties, and the common consensus is that if you get a 9-pointer, because that will help both you and your father or your parents, and you get a bike. So this is one strategy that you adopt in your life, but in business, while at work or some other transactions, you have different sorts of strategies that you have to make in order to make the negotiation successful. Now let us try to understand what are those strategies, and for every strategy, as we have been saying, you need a persuasive skill. Now persuasion acts as a key factor in negotiation, and what are the various factors that help you become persuasive? Now here are some factors that can make you persuasive, and the first is the style. You know, every individual has his or her unique style, but when you are going to negotiate, what style you are going to follow? The style will be language, the style will be a convincing approach, the style will be to understand the strength and the weakness, as we said earlier, and how to present your case. In many cases you will find that both the parties are given a chance to present their views. They present their case one by one, and after the presentations are done, then finally the negotiation starts. And when the negotiation starts, are you really following the you attitude? By you attitude we mean is that you have to convince the other person that he or she is going to be benefited. They call in business terms, they call it, tell them the sunny side of the deal. Tell them how it makes them advantageous, how it makes them happy. And then when you are on negotiating table, you are talking and listening, both these activities go together. So, talking and listening help in making you more persuasive. You are not only speaking, because if you simply talk, you will be imposing. But when and you know, if you simply continue to talk, you will appear to be more imposing and more demanding. Rather, if you allow the other party also to talk and you play the role of a listener, that will appear to be more advantageous to the other, and that is what we mean by you attitude. And then through your body language, you know, as we have said in the past, that there is no limit to the meaning of a word simply by speaking a word. There are non-words, as we said earlier. So, and these non-words can be expressed also through body language. Your body language complements your verbal language, and there are different ways you can express meaning through your body language. The way you look at, the way you throw your glances, the way you wince, the way you evince your own interest, the way you show your eyes, your face, all these actually comply a lot in the entire process of providing meaning. We have already discussed it while we are discussing on the topic of communicating without words. And finally, when you have done all that, you are going to summarize. And you know, summarizing is very important for every negotiation. By summarizing, you said, I have said this, you have said this, or we have discussed this, and we see that there is something that still needs to be discussed. Now, these are some of the ways which will help you. Now, these are the strategies of negotiation, but in order to negotiate, you have to understand the various stages. You cannot, you know, no negotiation can take place just in one line of agreement. The agreement is actually the culmination of all that you have discussed. The agreement is actually the quintessence of all you have discussed. The agreement is the sum and substance of the exchange of views that you have made with each other. So, for the stages of negotiation, we first begin with preparation, and in preparation comes the planning. As I said previously, before you go for the negotiation, plan, and while you are planning, you are not only discussing the case from all the angles, rather you are also anticipating. You should also be ready to anticipate that if this does not happen, what should be done, or where should I feel that I can sacrifice something in order to gain a little more. And then the exchanging of initial views. We said that in the initial process, after the preparation begins, and you know, there is a way to begin the preparation. Many of the negotiators feel it better to introduce themselves, or in certain cases this is done by the observer, who is the third party, who rationalizes the entire episode. And while introducing, after you have introduced yourself and the views are exchanged, and both the parties having expressed their initial views, now they are looking for some common ground where they can agree and disagree to some extent. Because all this process of interacting or negotiating, they finally lead to an agreement. This agreement ensues out of several agreements and disagreements, several affirmations and confirmations, or sometimes non-affirmations of ideas, issues, by showing both the parties the sunny side. And finally, what is of utmost importance is the implementation part. So, it is said that all these stages can be categorized into 3 phases, and then these 3 phases can be, the first is the phase of the preparation. So, during preparation, as we have said, you will look at the pros and cons of the entire subject or the issue by keeping into consideration where you can gain, where you can lose. You have to be ready. As I said, you have to remember that you should be prepared for the ups even and sometimes the downs, the upper limits and the lower limits that have to be kept into consideration. And then the interacting phase or the negotiating phase, and finally the implementation phase. During preparation phase, it is high time you actually looked for the strength and weaknesses, because you have done a lot of preparation for this subject or issue. You know what is your strength and what is the weakness of the other party. You also know vice versa the strength of the other party and weakness of yours. Wisdom says that if you feel that on a particular point you are weak, it is always better to show the positive sign so that your weakness, so that your negative is sunk under the heavy weight of positivism. Care should be made to discover the real issue. The real issue is of utmost importance, and while discussing, see to it that the real issue does not get submerged or debunked. If you have to have a car, you should aim at having the car. If you want to sell the product and you feel, because you are negotiating, you are actually trying to enter into a sort of argument of selling your own product. So, during that course, you also should show how this product is going to benefit others, how this product is going to benefit the other party. Nowadays, there are different ways, different labs are being made, skill based labs are on the move nowadays, and all these companies who are going to launch this or introduce these skill based labs, they will always show us the sunny side. We may have edge because we are the involved party. If we feel that to a certain extent it is going to benefit us, naturally we will come to an agreement. So, be realistic about objectives, and in this regard it is of high importance to remember what Tim Handel, a famous and a celebrated author of the book on negotiation, says. Bear in mind that it is almost impossible for a negotiator to do too much preparation. Why he says is that when you are at a negotiating table, despite the fact that you have done a lot of preparation, there are certain issues that may crop up in the midst of the meeting. For that you may not be prepared. So, be ready for that moment, be ready for that unprepared moment, for that unthought of issue that may any time come. That is why Handel says that it is almost impossible for a negotiator to do too much preparation. As somebody has rightly said that the preparation and the implementation are no parts of the negotiation. What is of utmost importance is the negotiating phase or the phase of interaction when you are exchanging views and when you are discussing. Of course, when the meeting is called, please see if the other party is presenting his or her case, test the initial position. I mean, in this way both the parties will do that. If you have presented your side of the story or the other party has shown their side of story, so look at the initial position where we are, I mean where both the parties are, and what is that butt of discussion, what is the moot question, what is the basic problem. So, after this discussion you will test the initial position and finally you will think of, because you know you cannot lead yourself to an agreement unless and until a lot of discussion, unless and until a lot of argumentation has been done. So, what is supposed for you as a negotiator is not only to see the initial views, rather also to see how this can speed up the process. Where is this ground for solution? What is the solution that can be helpful to both the parties? I mean the common ground of consensus. Common ground, I mean we have said in the earlier lecture, JOPA, zone of possible agreement. Remember, zone of possible agreement. So, to reach this zone of possible agreement, at times we may have to make some small sacrifices, because that will only speed up the process and enable us to move in the direction of the agreement. And finally, when such a thing has been done, here comes the importance of time. Do not lose your time, my dear friends, because once you come to an agreement and if you start thinking a lot about that, perhaps this time goes, and once the time goes you cannot control it. So, the right time is to sign an agreement, and when this agreement is done, it is advisable that the points of agreement have to be jotted down, have to be noted down. As we have been saying, that preparation and implementation does not matter much, they always stand in the background. What matters is what you have come to agree. What actually is of utmost importance is this agreement should sustain, and how much of this agreement is going to sustain, that is possible only when the points of the agreement are written carefully. Remember, while you are discussing, you also should have a concentration on the use of vocabulary, because you know, half the meaning of the agreement, half the meaning of the other party's decision or opinion lies in the way they wrap it in the words, they clothe it in the words. So, jot down the facts of the agreement, and finally, if that is done, it is high time you decided the roles. Once an agreement is reached at, please decide what role will be played by which party. And if that has been done, please see that the agreement appears to be the Batna agreement, the best agreement to a negotiated agreement, the best argument, fine, and you will feel that your argument has paid off well. Now, how can you utilize these strategies of negotiation? Remember, while you were preparing, the preparation part is done, but when you are negotiating, because before negotiation when you were to prepare, you had to see how psychologically needed such an agreement was or is, and that can be realized only when the tone is amicable. As we have been saying, much depends on the way you set your tone, you set your language, because as humans we are bound to disagree. But then in order to convince, you are using a language. For example, if both the parties, if both of us agree to this line of thought, perhaps in the days to come, it is going to benefit not only us, but other subsidiary parties involved also. Now, this is how language becomes very affecting, language becomes very persuasive. And take a caution that you are going to sell the sunny side, highlight the sunny side. And how do you do that? You can say, after our initial discussion and after exchange of our initial views, we have come to understand that if we take this action, this is going to help me in this way, and this is also going to benefit you in this way. Now, if you are going to explore, if you are going to convey the sunny side to the other party also, there is nothing that can stop you from reaching an agreement. But sometimes things do not go as we want. Sometimes we do not get the desired car. Sometimes we do not get the desired speed, but then we have some way or the other compromised because of the price, because of some other facilities. Every coin may have two sides, but we have to see which side is more beneficial. So, one should always be ready with the alternate plans. If this does not work, can we sacrifice to some extent? But remember, while doing so, see that no greater damage is done. And while doing so, see that it also does not damage the other party. It is always better to allow more time and space to other person. You know, on many occasions, you have to negotiate with people from different cultures, from different countries, and sometimes it is seen that only because of a use of a particular word, only because the expression of a particular non-verbal cue, the negotiation suffers. So, as a careful communicator, as a communicator who is aware of the negotiation strategy, all you need to do is to allow the other party more space and more time. Because many people of many countries, they sometimes see to it that if a process is delayed, they also think it from their own point of view, and they may at times allow concession. So, in such a situation, it is advisable to remain a little bit patient and get more concessions or allow more concessions. We will read more about how cultures affect the negotiation style when we discuss on cultures. Now, here we will see that some prime concerns, some prime styles which are of utmost importance during negotiation are, they are 6 in number. Many writers, many negotiators, many experts have said, if these 5 strategies or styles are taken into consideration, the negotiation can appear to go in a very smooth direction. The first is collaborate. You see, there are 3 styles mostly in negotiation. The first is a red style that has been decided on the basis of color by some authors, the red style. In a red style, the negotiators or the people who are going to discuss, they appear to be more self-centered. I mean, they say it from their own point of view, and such a style is not going to help. Another is the blue style. The blue style is more cooperative and not as competitive as the red style. And the third style is the purple color style. The purple color style is a mix of both the red and the blue styles. So, when you are negotiating, it is advisable to go for the last one, that is the purple style. But other than that, there are certain qualities we need to imbibe in us in order to make negotiation successful, and the first is to collaborate. See to it that your tone is not of confrontation, rather it is of collaboration. With collaboration, because we are in a world where we need more and more collaboration, we are in a world where we seek more agreements, we are in a world where we seek more exchange of ideas, and this is possible because nothing can come unless and until there is a lot of deliberation and discussion. So, see to it that you collaborate with others while you are negotiating. Then comes to accommodate. Sometimes you may feel that people are from other cultures and they are not ready to understand your point of view. In this sort of situation, what you need to do is you need to make your language a little bit more polite than is required, a little bit more accommodating. I mean, allowing more room to the other parties, so that the other party may also allow more concessions to you. This can be done when you are having a discussion possibly in your area of strength and in your own venue, but see to it that even if it is held in your own venue, the other party does not feel himself or herself as the other. And then comes compromise. You cannot remain rigid throughout. If you remain rigid throughout, you will be following the red style, where you will be more competitive, where you will be more self-centered, looking at things from your own point of view, and in such a situation, negotiation may suffer or may come across a deadlock. Then comes the control. This control depends upon how forgiving you are, how conceding you are, how convincing you are. So, have a control in yourself. Sometimes you may feel that much of your ideas, much of your ambitions are not going to meet. In such a situation, you always have a control of asking for clarification, but seek clarification in a way that it is to advantage and it is not to disadvantage. And then finally, avoidance. No emotional aspect of yours should appear to be very visible. Sometimes it so happens that you are so much preoccupied with your own emotion that you are going to be so rigid and blunt. In such a situation, the negotiation will suffer a breakdown. So, see to it that you can avoid your emotion, control your emotion, and allow the negotiation to go further in a manner that is convincing, that is cooperating, and that is also going to help the other party. There are certain things that you can avoid. As we have said, let there be no confrontational tone, and moreover, there are some over enthusiastic communicators who actually say everything just in the beginning. While you are going to present your case of course, but keep some certain key points with you so that you may not speak everything just in one go. Otherwise, in a situation of crisis, you will not have something to take resort to or to present, so that there can be an allowance of concession. Avoid to be personal, and please see to it that sometimes even the other party, while expressing their case or while putting their own arguments, you have to be aware of the tone. Please do not rely only on the words, rather rely on the tone of the words, how a particular word has been spoken, and try to coordinate, try to correlate one point with the other, one stream of thought with the other, so that you may be in a better position, and let the discussion do not go long. Allow the discussion not to go long, because sometimes it so happens, if you have come to an agreement and again you are reminded of something which you have lost, in such a way there is no moving back, there is no return. It is a forward move, and once you have come to an agreement, see to it that you do not have any further discussion in this regard. Sometimes while reaching an agreement, as you will use your own language, tone, control, compromise, but see that you are also emphasizing the other party's benefit, but then while agreeing, while the discussion comes to an agreement, please acknowledge the cooperation provided by the other party, and this can really be expressed through the tone and through the non-verbals that you are going to use. If you feel that there is something to suggest, do not suggest a longer or a solution that is not possible, and as a careful communicator, You have to note the points, because based on these points the future course of action will be taken. Remember, every now and then all of us are not victorious, though I said in the beginning that every negotiation should end in a win-win situation, but time changes and every individual or every organization gets its own time. So sometimes you may not get what you really want. The thing is that we cannot triumph all the time. One should always be ready for some defeat at some point of time. See to it that in case a deadlock is there, the efforts should be made as how to resolve the deadlock, and in case of resolving the deadlock, do not be too rigid, rather be flexible. If you have to sacrifice a little, please do not hesitate, but do not let it appear on your face that you are going to be a loser. Rather, your face is such a junction which can hide some expressions, and here is the time that you hide the expression of defeat or the sacrifice you have made. Rather, try to show that you are positive, you are quite optimistic. See to it that if you become too rigid, there is bound to be a conflict, and the basic aim of negotiation suffers. The basic aim of negotiation comes to a breakdown or to a halt. You should always be ready not only for a win-win situation, but you should also be ready for a win-lose situation. Sometimes it can be a lose-win situation, sometimes it can be a win-win situation. No negotiation allows a total win to only one party. Rather, it is a lose-win case. It is in certain areas a win for you, whereas it may be a loss for the other party. That is why in negotiation we have been saying that we have to see the entire discussion from the point of view of both the parties. My dear friends, let us always remember what a famous writer says: in business you do not get what you deserve, rather you get what you negotiate. If in a global world you have to survive and survive with success, you have to be ready with this maxim and allow more concessions, because unless and until concessions are made, you cannot negotiate, because negotiation is a sort of exchange, it is not a sort of imposition. Negotiation is a cooperation, it is not a competition. Negotiation is to see that both the parties exist. Negotiation is a process to see that both the parties win and both the parties may lose at times. Let us negotiate, because in order to survive we have to negotiate with several deals, and all deals cannot absolutely be a winning deal. Some deals also can be a little bit of losing game, but winning for greater good, winning for greater welfare. Thank you very much.